House arrest!
House arrest.
Paul Walter Hauser, leg hooked! New champion!
Oh my God!
Hauser's a new champion!
Here's your winner and the new Progress Brodies champion.
That's my guy.
Paul Walter Hauser.
Damn.
I don't think Paul can entirely believe it
You
himself.
don't believe it.
He is a champion
Holy shit.
in Progress Wrestling.
I mean, that
Hell
has to be,
yes.
with
Good
all due
job,
respect, that has to be an upset.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to the Triple Crown Champ, your number one stop shop for wrestling talk. We're talking champs v contenders, rookies v vets, and shoots v works. I am your host, the Triple Crown Champ. Let's get into it. So, today I want to talk about the WWE PLE hailing from St. Louis, Missouri on the banks of the Mississippi River, Backlash. Now, Backlash was a PLE I didn't really expect a whole lot from. However, we got a little bit more than I expected. At the start of the show, I wondered to myself as I was watching, wouldn't it be great to have a PLE that is a pure wrestler's dream? Some absolutely phenomenal, some great, well-crafted matches, and that's what we got. So, we start off the night with the feud between Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. Now, I will say this match impressed me more than I thought it would. If we know our stuff about the WWE and wrestling, we have watched a fair amount of NXT, and a couple of years ago there was a feud between Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. Now, the match was impressive and both performers impressed throughout the match. I will say Lyra Valkyria's swing is a very fun move. Cesaro swing, we've had multiple different wrestlers that did a variation of a swing. We had Alberto Del Rio. We've had many different wrestlers that did a version of a swing. To date, I believe Lyra Valkyria is the most fun I've ever seen. It's interesting, it's a little bit disrespectful to your competitor, and it just brings everybody together into the match. What else I will say is I once again see a fair amount of camaraderie in the female locker room. The girls work very well together. Aside from the fact that Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch have always worked well, as I said, going back to NXT, and Lyra Valkyria has proven herself more than equipped in recent weeks as far as promos are concerned. I think we all noticed towards the end of the match a moment where Lyra was hit in the nose. I believe it was an accidental thumb to the eye. However, Becky missed. She caught Lyra in the nose, and that looked like it was extremely painful. She held her nose all the way through the end of the match. She finished the match, which I was very impressed with, because it looked like a very distressing, your eyes kind of watering. It looked like her nose had swollen up a little bit towards the end as she was leaving the ring. So I was very impressed at the fact that she was able to finish the match. Rolled up Becky for the pin and got the 1-2-3. Now, another thing that comes to mind is Lyra's wings. It's always come to mind because, quite frankly, I really dislike Lyra Valkyria's ring attire. I dislike the wings, just altogether. I think she's incredibly beautiful, incredibly amazing competitor. However, the whole ring attire I just do not like. I've never gotten into it. However, I do think the lore of Morgith, the crow, the raven that flies over the field of battle from Celt mythology, and chooses who lives or who is no longer with us. Guidelines, people. Because of that, I'm very much interested in the story, and I think it has some weight to it. I respect it. I don't have to like it, but I do respect it. Now, what I thought to myself is there is probably an opportunity for Lyra Valkyria to interact a little bit better with the fans in respects as those wings. I think maybe when she does meet and greets, when she does public events, when she does events where she interacts with the fans, she brings those wings with her. Even if she's not wearing ring attire, she's wearing normal clothes, she brings those wings with her. She allows people to take pictures with the wings or with her with the wings on. I believe that would be a very good idea. Perhaps in a later part of her career, the wings become a symbol, maybe her symbol, maybe it's on her ring attire, printed on her ring attire, something like that. But I think there is actually a fair amount of opportunity with those wings that hasn't been explored yet. And the reason I thought this was because I watched her walk to the ring and people were trying to touch her wings as she walked through. Now, I believe she was so deep within the character of having this feud with Becky that her character was focused on her opponent. So therefore, she didn't do much of that interacting. But I believe there's a great opportunity for that, and I'd love to see more of that. Let's talk briefly about the Fatal 4-Way between Drew McIntyre, LA Knight, Damian Priest, and the champion Jacob Fatu for the US title. My only thought in this is a Scotsman versus a Samoan. However could it go wrong? I think I might have alluded to something like this before. I think for Americans, especially wrestling fans, the type of guys that you don't want to fight in any case is always Samoans. And I understand that. I very much understand that, because on this side of the world, in Europe, we also have that. It's Scotsmen. You don't fight Scotsmen. If you have the opportunity, do not fight Scotsmen. Yeah? They're what Samoans are to you, to us. Now, I also said before that I thought that if Jacob Fatu was ever going to be the big bad of the WWE, he would have to go through Drew McIntyre. And I think this match, a part of this match, was almost not just setting that up, but seeing how it would work and if it could work. And I think we need another bite at the cherry, because I'm not quite sure. The teasing worked. However, the in-match working ability, I'm not so sure about. They didn't really come into contact too much during the match, so we didn't get to see a lot of that. Maybe that was by design. I'm not quite sure. But in any case, I thought it was very interesting to have these two competitors face each other. And what else I thought was interesting is that Drew McIntyre was a competitor that definitively beat Brock Lesnar, and he looked the most convincing doing it of any wrestler, I think, since Brock Lesnar came on the scene way back when he beat The Rock for the world title. I don't think another wrestler has looked more in his element or had a logical ability to face Brock Lesnar than Drew McIntyre. I've seen Samoa Joe step up. We've seen John Cena step up. We've seen Randy Orton step up. And most of them, all of them, looked like they were out of their element. There was only two wrestlers that looked like they could probably convincingly beat him. And ironically, one of them was Bryan Danielson. Crazy, I know. But there's a match, champion versus champion. And yeah, Bryan Danielson gets absolutely torn apart for 90% of the match, and then in the last, just little bit before the end of the match, he gets Brock Lesnar. And when I say he gets Brock Lesnar, he gets Brock Lesnar good. And it legitimately looks like this man could actually hurt Brock Lesnar. Aside from that, I think the only other person I've ever seen was Drew. So if you keep that in mind, I don't think the WWE could necessarily drop the legitimacy of Drew McIntyre's character because of the fact that he's done that. They're always going to keep him as a formidable opponent. And I think that's a good idea. How does that work when you're trying to build Jacob Fatu as the next big bad? I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure in the coming we will find out. So now let's talk about Penta versus Dom. And first thing I've got to say is, wow, Dom is so over. I absolutely love Dom's work at the moment, and I did warn that as soon as Dom was able to work more as a face, we would see more offense from him. We would see more of his movesets. We would see the things that he's actually learned. And it's really something, isn't it? Now he holds the Intercontinental title. He has to legitimately be able to defend it on some level. And in that, we get to see him mount a lot more offense than we ever seen him do in matches, at least since he has been a heel. And I believe he was absolutely fantastic. That room for a face to be able to wrestle better, or for a champion indeed to prove that he legitimately has the ability to hold his title, allows us to see a lot more of that offense I speak of, and one of which was an amazing suicide dive. You may remember it, a suicide dive from inside the ring, outside the ring, and turned it into a spinning DDT. Inside to outside. And I thought that was phenomenal. I actually remembered saying wow as I saw that. I knew Dom had a lot in his locker. I didn't know he had it to that level. And remember, he is an extremely tall guy. Again, I believe that once Dom puts on some muscle, you know, maybe talk to Drew McIntyre, find out how he does it, get your creatine along with every meal, whatever you have to do, brother, bulk up, because I think he will easily be one of the best heels in the company. He can be at the top of the roster, at which time he would have won some more titles. He would have picked up the US, maybe picked up the Intercontinental another time, won a Money in the Bank. His character will be more credible in that sphere. I think WWE are building to that, and I think all is left really for Dom is muscle mass. He's already there. Fantastic match. Penta always puts on a great performance. So all in all, yeah, really good match. Worth the watch. Enjoyed it immensely. And the transition of who and what Dom has become in the space of about a month and a half is just nothing short of amazing. So, Penta Dom, chef's kiss. Also, I'd like to say that when Dom hit Oblivion, my God, the pop. Dom hitting Oblivion, that was beautiful. Yeah. So, on to Pat McAfee versus Gunther. Now, I have always known Pat McAfee had an ability to wrestle. The first time I saw Pat McAfee, I actually thought that he was put on the roster as a wrestler. The reason I say that is because I remember him having a team in War Games against the Undisputed Era, Team Pat McAfee. So Pat McAfee has been wrestling for a while. You know, he's still training. He's always said that he always wanted to be a wrestler. That's the thing he wanted to be. So there's no way that he hasn't been wrestling. I thought they told a very good story in the ring, him and Gunther. By the looks of it, Gunther can work with absolutely anyone. So that's a huge draw for the WWE. You start to see more and more why the WWE had Gunther. Obviously, we are not party to some of those meetings and some of those sessions within the WWE, so we can't know what the WWE staff know about some of these wrestlers. It can only be revealed to us throughout the course of playing characters, and I believe it has. Gunther has proven to himself to be a consummate professional who can work with absolutely anyone and still make money and make a draw on that match. So kudos to him, kudos to Pat McAfee, who did very well at telling the story, I believe. It wasn't his greatest wrestling match. I personally have seen Pat McAfee wrestle better than he wrestled at Backlash. However, he told the story better than I've ever seen him tell the story before. So it's just a matter of putting those two elements together. I'm sure he's not intended to be a full-time wrestler, but to wrestle matches every now and again, nothing wrong with that. I think maybe having a match against Gunther may be a little bit above his grade, his level. Maybe it should have been someone lesser on the card. Maybe it should have been someone like The Miz. I thought that would be great. Someone like that, someone like Austin Theory, someone like Grayson Waller probably would have been a better choice. Personally, I think, but the match was entertaining. It worked. They told a story very well. The aspects of the wrestling will come later. Notice that Backlash was a 2 hour and 20 minutes, something like that, 2.5 hours show. So therefore, it wasn't the WWE's biggest show. They were simply trying to work out some things that they had, and I would think give some people some chance to wrestle that maybe don't necessarily have as much chance, but it didn't necessarily work out that way. That's what I thought it would be. But otherwise than that, it was a perfectly fine PLE. So, let's move on to Randy Orton and John Cena. So, I can't really speak too much of this, but most of this match, it was not bad. It was okay. Towards the end, it really kind of started to pick up. Not sure exactly what they were going for. And I thought the finish was pretty good, actually. The knockout of two referees, I mean, some parts was a little bit contrived, but it is what it is. It wasn't the worst, it wasn't the best, but it was entertaining. And I did enjoy it. So I can't complain about that. It was what it was. Only thing I can say is it was very interesting at the end of the match to see John Cena have his moment. I believe it looks like he broke kayfabe. The realization that he hasn't got too much longer doing this. He hasn't got too many more dates. He said it was 27 dates. I think he's been through probably about 6 or 7 of those already. So in that respect, he knows he's not going to be here long. Maybe he knew it was his last time ever wrestling in St. Louis, Missouri, a city that's well known for wrestlers. It's a wrestling town. So therefore, I think maybe that hit him hard, and we got to see a moment of humanity from John Cena. So now let's talk about Cobra Kai star Paul Walter Hauser. Now, Paul Walter Hauser is an actor I've very much enjoyed. As I always said, I enjoy actors who are able to portray something more than exactly what they present as. He's a very big guy. He has been cast in a lot of those roles, the kind of stupid, big, fat guy. Yet he's able to do so much with those roles, and that has kind of transcended itself to wrestling. Clearly, he is a big fan of wrestling, and he joined the Proteus promotion, wrestling under his own name. Now, not too long ago, probably about a month ago, he won the Proteus world title with an absolutely beautiful move, by the way.
House arrest! Paul Walter Hauser leg hooked! New champion!
Oh my God!
Hauser's a new champion!
Here is your winner and the new Progress Broadest Champion.
That's my guy.
Paul Walter Hauser.
Damn.
I don't think Paul can entirely believe it
You
himself.
don't believe it.
He is a champion in Progress Wrestling.
I mean, that has to be,
Good
with all
job,
due respect, that
PWH.
has to be an upset.
Oh, absolutely.
And therefore is the Proteus World Champion. A little bit of fun fact there I thought I would share with you, just in case you are not a Cobra Kai fan. I mean, I remember the whole era. I'm not necessarily as much into it. I watch the show here and there. But for me, Richard Jewell, that was, for me, the best role I've ever seen him play. It's a true life story based on the bombings around the Atlanta Olympics many, many years ago. And he plays the lead character in that film. Of course, there's also Black Klansman. There's a whole host of works. He's done a lot of work. In any case, I thought this very interesting. He is really doing this at a significant level. So, props to you, Paul Waterhauser. We're looking forward to seeing more of what you do. And until then, I am the Triple Crown Champ. Please put a like, subscribe, comment in the comment section, hit the notification button. It lets you know when I'm uploading. Until then, the champ is no longer here. I'll see you next time.